Definitions are extremely useful when learning new words, but when I think of the term definition, I think of logic rather than the dictionary. Welcome to How to Write Good. I am your host, Daniel Poppie. You can find out more about me at danielpoppie.com. If it is your first time here, How to Write Good is a writing podcast that seeks to find principles and advice that can be applied across a broad range of writing situations. If you've been here before, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button below, and share. So when you listened last episode, I talked about logic, and I'm going to be talking about logic again for this episode and the next 2 episodes as well, because I think that logic is an extremely important part of developing as a writer. I believe that logic connects directly to writing, and I'm going to be talking about each step of the logical process so that we can implement that logical process, or at least the framework of that logical process, into our own writing process. This isn't going to be a class on logic, of course, just a very basic overview, but I think this is something that you should listen to because when I learned how to think in this way, my writing became better. I became better able to dig into certain ideas. Things became clearer. As I stated in my last episode, introducing the idea of logic, I was better able to understand the world. And because I was better able to understand the world, I was better able to put that into practice in my writing. So today I'm going to be talking about the first step in the logical process. And there are 3, so there's going to be 2 more after this. I'm going to be talking about definitions or defining something. So what is a definition? Well, when most people think about a definition, they usually think of the dictionary, and I think that's just because the things that we are defining most are words. But what if we talked about what a definition is? What does it mean to define something? I think one of the best ways to understand what a definition is limiting what a specific thing is. It's stating that a thing is this, and because it is that specific thing, it is not going to be something else. So we have a dog, and we have a definition for a dog, and a dog is not the same thing as a cat. There is a dictionary definition for a pen. There's a dictionary definition for a key. There's a dictionary definition for happiness, sadness, any other word you can think of. We have brought them together, given them a definition, and the reason why we give those things a definition is so we can understand them better, so we can look at the world, we can understand ourselves better as well. If I go into a book and I am reading a book and I do not know specific words in that book, I am misunderstanding what the book is trying to say, but I can get rid of that misunderstanding by picking up a dictionary or going online to a dictionary and reading what that dictionary says that particular word means. Defining something in logic is the same thing. We are trying to figure out what a thing is rather than what a particular word means. So what does it mean to be a dog? What is a dog? What is a cat? What is a hamster? And these questions seem easy at first. But defining something is a little different. When we look at defining something within logic, we are trying to go deeper. We are trying to find the essence of what that thing is. Now, essence. The word essence is something we hear in our lives. We actually hear a variation of the word essence, essential. That's the variation on it. And when we use the word essential, it is meaning something we need. Right? And it is the same thing with essence with a minor variation. So what is an essence? An essence is the core nature of a thing, the components that make up the central core of whatever we're talking about, whether that thing is living, whether that thing has been created by humans, or whether that thing is dead or even non-living. What is needed for a thing to be a thing? So when we talk about certain things, it's pretty easy to know what that thing is in its essential nature, or when we look at its essence. If we talk about a key is something, a specific lock or a specific set of locks. Notice I brought in the idea that it's a specific lock or a specific set of locks, and the reason why I say that is because lockpicks are not keys. Things we use to unlock doors that are not made for those specific doors are not keys. Keys are custom made for specific locks. A bicycle is something easy to define as well. It is a vehicle with two wheels, one wheel being in front of the other. So why does it matter? What does it matter that we should try to figure out what a thing is? When we know what a thing is, down to its core, we can better explain what that thing is. If you're a writer and you've been writing for some time, you can probably see how this is really useful. If you can understand a thing, and I talked about this in the last episode on logic, but if you can understand a thing, you can write about it better. You can write down to the root of what that thing is. And I can't remember what episode I talked about this in, or I mentioned it at least. When you get down to the core of what a thing is, and you write about that core, it is often revelatory to people because people don't usually think about the core of what something is. They usually don't think about the essence of something. So when you talk about something, not necessarily stating these are the basic components or this is what makes up the core, but you talk about it in a way that addresses the essence, it is often the case that a light bulb goes off in that person's head and they're suddenly like, oh, that makes so much sense. Of course, that is what that thing is. That is how it functions in the world. That is the basic nature of it. So just using this, so just defining the things, finding the limits, finding what that core of a thing is can be extremely powerful in your writing. If you use this one aspect of logic, if you're going to use any aspect of logic, use this one. If you use this one and forget all the rest, you will actually improve your writing. And even if you have questions about it, just try it. Try thinking about what a thing actually is before you start writing about it. People do this naturally to a certain degree, but I think that when you focus on doing it, it actually ramps it into gear and you can actually think about things more specifically. And because you can think about things more specifically, you can show people through your writing what that thing is, or you can explain it better. I've also talked about in other episodes how when you want to focus on an action or a scene, it is often more beneficial to actually focus on a single thing that exemplifies that specific action or scene. And I think that this is so powerful in writing because it goes back to this idea that we are trying to get to the root of something. What is the essence of that scene? And if we can find the essence of that scene, then we can just write about the essence and we can get to the bare bones of what it is. And it's going to be clearer to the reader when they're reading it. So just try it. If you have any doubts about whether it's going to help, try it. If it doesn't help, then you can throw it out. But if it helps you significantly, then you can bring it into your writing. It can become a part of your writing and make you a better writer. This all goes back to something I talked about before as well, that you are trying to be clear in your writing. You are trying to reach a state of clarity where the reader understands what you have written in the way you meant it to be understood. So the last thing I would say in relation to this is when you're trying to define something, the clearer you can be, the better. Do not be ambiguous when you think about that thing. Now, I always talk about how writing is not the same thing as science, and writing is not the same thing as logic either. So when you are talking about something in your writing, you're writing about something, you are not going to be explaining it as if it's a logical argument. You're going to be explaining it more in an amorphous type of way. But what I mean by being clear, and I'll reiterate this again, even though you might have heard it in the past, is you're trying to convey that experience, convey that emotion, convey whatever you're trying to convey as clearly as possible to the reader. So if they can understand it as you understood it, you've actually achieved something very great in writing, and it's not an easy feat to do that thing. But make sure when you are writing, whatever you're trying to convey is not ambiguous. And it sounds funny because in some cases we do keep things ambiguous in our writing, but in that moment, if you're writing a single paragraph and you're trying to convey, maybe there's a bit of intrigue in that moment, you're trying to get the reader to feel as if they want to know more about something, maybe you want the reader to get angry, maybe you want the reader to start to think about getting angry, you still have a specific thing you're trying to get the reader to understand or to emote. And that is what you're trying to focus on, and that is what you're trying to make clear in an odd way to your reader. If you enjoyed this, you're probably wondering how you can support me. Well, you can actually do two simple things. Follow the first link below to grab a copy of my book, and then follow the second link and sign up for my newsletter. It's that simple. Those two things will mean the world to me and give me more time to write books and create content for you. As always, my name is Daniel Poppie, and this is How to Write Good.